So hey y'all. For those who don't know me, my name is Renee. Right now, I'm working as a children's therapist, for a domestic violence shelter. I've been here for a minute, and right now, I feel like I'm in transition, and I'll talk to y'all a little bit more about that at the end. Um, but I just recently got my LICSW in May. I believe it was like May 5th. So it's been a little while. So we're gonna talk a little bit about my experience. Okay, so everybody knows these key facts about when you're preparing to get your license. So this is nothing new to y'all, but what is going to happen once you complete your supervision and you do your final presentation, um, you and Miss Renita are going to talk about your hours. More than likely, she already has a record of it, but sometimes it helps to have your own so y'all can kind of fact check that and make sure that you're on track. Once that is kind of double checked that you have everything, she is going to send you something that you're going to sign, and then she is going to submit it to the board on your behalf, and then she's going to send you a copy of it. So I don't exactly remember how long it took them to get it processed, but it didn't take them really long. I want to say that I was able, I think me and Renita sent it to the board in September, and I had already applied in October, so it was pretty quick. Um, so then you can submit your application to the board even if they haven't confirmed the hours yet, because they're going to look at all of that stuff. Um, so it's a $75 fee. I think there's a card processing fee, but it's like $3. And then of course, once the board says, hey, you can take the test, they'll send it to you by email. And you'll be able to register for the clinical exam on the ASWB site. Okay. So this is a lot, but this is kind of what to expect. And these are some things that may throw people off when you're going into the testing space. So I know recently there was a switch. So now we're back with Pearson VUE. I don't know if all of y'all know, but we were with PSI for a period of time as far as the testing provider. So now we're back with Pearson VUE. And I will say Pearson is very strict, y'all. So make sure that you have your stuff together when you go. They are going to fingerprint you. They're going to check both forms of identification. Make sure you're prepared. So be mindful of any name changes. If you've recently got married or if you have, a compound name or anything that would throw you off from them checking both your IDs and being like, hey, you're not who you say you are. Just make sure that you have that squared away before you go. Um, Wearing layers to the testing environment, I highly recommend. You don't know what the temperature is going to be like in any of those testing sites, and you want to be as comfortable as possible, especially when you're already feeling really emotional, I guess, or lack of better words. You're kind of feeling like hyped up. So make sure that you're comfortable whatever you wear. I think I just wore sweats and a t-shirt because I was like, we're gonna try to make this as like relaxing as possible. Bring a snack and a water. I highly recommend this. I know a lot of people that I talk to, they're like, I don't want to take a break. I just want to get through this test. Take your break, y'all. Absolutely, please take your break. And I say that because now they've changed the format of the test. So you have 85 questions for 2 hours, and then there's a break, and then you have your last 85 questions. So the difference now is that you do not have the full 4 hours for the whole 170 questions. So you can't go back to those first 85 after they're submitted. That's why I'm saying take your break because after you submit those first 85s, if you're like me, your anxiety is gonna be at a 10,000. So take your break and reset before you go into those last 85. Um, I'll also say make sure that you have everything in your locker. I'm a super paranoid person, so I make sure I was always in view of that camera. So if whoever was sitting at the desk or whoever the camera was, I'm like, I want to make sure you see everything I'm doing in this locker. make sure that you don't write anything down before the test starts. And if you need anything, make sure that you're raising your hand because you just don't want there to be any reason why you're not able to complete the test. Okay, so these are the study materials that I use. It seems like a lot, y'all, because it was. So bear with me. So I did get the non-APGAR clinical exam book. I did really like it because I was able to kind of figure out pretty quickly what I really needed extra help with. Um, I will say I think I got mine from Amazon. When I got mine, y'all, it was a whole lot cheaper. I looked it up before I came and presented to y'all today. It's $186 for this book, which is insane. I spent $86 when I bought it. So I just wanted y'all to just be aware if y'all could, have someone loan their book to you or you can get it somewhere cheaper. I would definitely advise that. But Amazon has it really expensive right now. And I bought the book that comes with um a test. So it's the study book and then there's a testing book with it. Um, I also took the ASWB practice exam before I took my test. I want to say I took it a week before I sat for it. Um, and the best advice I have on that is making sure that you recreate the testing environment to the best of your ability. I didn't do it at home. I went to the library and I sat in an uncomfy chair and I sat at a table and I just pretended that I was in the exam and I focused in on it and kind of talked myself through it like I would talk through the exam. What that does is it helps you get prepared for the format. I don't know why it stopped sharing all of a sudden. My computer wanted to be weird. Um, can y'all still hear me though? Okay. For some reason, my computer wanted to close the PowerPoint because it's hating on me. But that's fine. I can continue. So what I was saying is that making sure that you recreate that testing environment is going to be really important because you want to make sure that you're prepared to be in that kind of, I don't want to say sterilized environment, but sterilized environment that's not cozy like your house. And then you want to also make sure that you understand the format of the test. So that is not the reason that it trips you up. Um, so another resource I used was RayTube. I will say like he's a new hidden gem for me. Like I had no idea that I didn't know who he was until like I started seeing like videos like pop up on my YouTube when I was like kind of prepping like my little playlist for the gym. So he is really good with breaking down content and questions. What I like about his study sessions is that he will give you a lot of content and then at the very end, he gives you questions on whatever he just taught you. It kind of reminds me of school, but I get it because I'm like testing myself throughout him, going through the material. And then when he sends you the stuff after the session, I'm like quizzing myself because it's been a little minute. And I'm kind of like, oh, okay, like I got this question right this time, as opposed to when I was watching it with him, I didn't get it right. So he's really, really helpful. His sessions are really cheap. I think most of them are like $25 a piece. And then he also does free ones. I also use Agents of Change, mostly just their channel on YouTube, and I also use Dr. Pam as well. So a lot of these videos from these exam prep people are on YouTube. I would not recommend buying an entire program, y'all. Like that's just me. I'm a cheap person, so I'm like I'm gonna do the most affordable option. If you feel like you need like a set curriculum or course, do that. But this is so much cheaper just finding someone that aligns with your learning style and kind of sticking with them. So that's kind of what I did. Okay, so there are some key differences that I wanted to point out, um, which kind of threw me in the beginning. Mind y'all, I told y'all I'm a therapist. So it threw me because I'm like thinking like how I would practice. And I think that's very different than what the test is asking for. And that really threw me because I struggled in the content areas that were pretty much majority of the test. And that freaked me out at first. I'm like, you're supposed to know this. But it wasn't the fact that I didn't know what the material was. It was more so on how to apply it. based on what the question is asking. And I think the main point that I want to drive with that is make sure that you're paying attention to what the question is asking, not what you think it could possibly happen, or it could possibly, with this little detail, it could be this. Really focus in on what the question is actually saying. When we add details, we kind of get lost in it. Um, so I will say this test is a lot of application based questions. I really don't remember a whole lot of recall, honestly. I think the most recall I had was medication, and that's not fun. So, most of the stuff you're directly applying it to what they're asking. One thing that really helped me when I was going through the questions, I highlighted who the client was, my role, and what setting I'm working in. You may not have all three in a question, but just breaking it down that way helps you understand a little bit better what is this question asking me based off of the setting? Because it does depend. So if you're working with a family, let's say, and the question is asking you an intervention to do with the family, you're not going to just ask like a parent, like what coping skill can they use. You're going to talk to the family as a whole on what coping skills would be effective for the family as a whole. Those questions will trip you up because you'll see it's like some kind of toxic behavior in the question. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to address that with that individual. But if they're asking you a group question or a family question, you're more than likely the answer choice is going to be related to that group or family. So make sure that you're paying attention to that, because that's what really made a difference for me in highlighting them as I went throughout the test. Um, let's see. Okay, so I don't know if this video is gonna work, but I will just give y'all a little disclaimer. So I had really bad test anxiety, y'all. Like, and I say that like jokingly kinda, but honestly, y'all, like this is the first time in my life that I have felt this level of anxiety. Like this has almost had me questioning like, am I okay? Because I've never felt that level of anxiety before. I've had test anxiety, like with, exams or, a lot of important things like when I was in grad school. But this test was so daunting for me that I had to find a whole brand new set of coping skills. Like I had to figure out what is going to work for me to get out of my own head to effectively tackle this test. Um, and I think it was hard because it was like, this is something that I'm really wanting to do. Why do I have so much anxiety about it? So I'm going to show y'all this little video. It's kind of cute and kind of crazy, but it does have some good tips in here. So hopefully it'll play. I don't know. It might not. Like I said, this thing doesn't like me today. Let me see if that'll do it. Can y'all hear it? No. Hold on. I feel like we went through this before, Renita, and I figured out how to do this before. Hold on. 'Cause it's gonna bother me if I can't figure out how to do it, y'all. Let me see. I think last time I had to share sound. There we go. I think that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's normal to feel a bit of anxiety about performing well on an exam. A bit of anxiety is not bad and can even help to boost your performance. However, when anxiety levels interfere with test performance, you'll want to do something about it. One of the best ways to combat test anxiety is to make sure that you have properly studied. This means, in particular, that you've done a lot of self-testing to ensure that you have information in your long-term memory stores and that you're able to retrieve that information. We also strongly recommend that when you self-test, that you do so under conditions mimicking an actual exam. For example, you might time your self tests and maybe even do it in a classroom. In this way, you normalize taking tests. If proper preparation isn't enough, you might look at each component of anxiety and manage one or more of these components. Anxiety has 4 different components: cognitive, emotional, physical, and behavioral. And you can reduce anxiety with various techniques to address each component. Here are a few tips from anxiety expert Ryan Jacoby. To manage the cognitive component of anxiety, consider what you're thinking when you're feeling anxious. The goal here is to identify errors in thinking. For example, if you're having thoughts like, I better do well on this exam or else I'll never become a doctor, this is called catastrophizing, and that you're imagining an extreme and negative consequence to taking the exam. Use reason to fight against this. Remind yourself, for example, that one test will not make or break your career. To manage the emotional component of anxiety, you can use various distress tolerance techniques. An example is self-soothing. You can self-soothe by visualizing something that makes you feel good, listening to music or pleasurable sounds, smelling your favorite lotion or scented candle, tasting a delicious meal or beverage, or petting an animal or getting a hug. To manage the physical component of anxiety, you can use deep breathing exercises as well as progressive muscle relaxation, where you tense and then relax various muscles one at a time from head to toe. If you Google, you'll likely find many videos which can guide you through this procedure. The behavioral component of anxiety refers to coping behaviors. For example, you could use an active coping mechanism such as spending more time studying, as well as making sure that you get enough sleep, exercise, fluid, and nutrition. You could also, in limited amounts, use passive coping mechanisms which focus on managing your emotions. We've already mentioned self-soothing, but there are many more techniques such as learning how to do mindful meditation, a method which in part helps you to experience your emotions without being judgmental about them. A really great resource which can help guide you in managing the different components of anxiety is John Abramowitz's book, The Stress Less Workbook: Simple Strategies to Relieve Pressure, Manage Commitments, and Minimize Conflicts. On the other hand, if you'd like more than a self-help reference, consider seeking a therapist who practices cognitive behavioral therapy, in particular dialectical behavioral therapy. For more tips on managing anxiety, please see the relevant and recommended resources at the end of
Okay,
this video.
hold on. So, so one of the biggest things that I want y'all to kind of get from it is that this test is really mentally and emotionally taxing than most people would like to let on. And you almost kind of have to go in kind of prepared for war almost. Like you kind of have to take your toolkit that you would use with your clients and use it on yourself, because that test will have you thinking that you don't have it, that you are not a good social worker, that this is not going to happen for you because look at all these other people that are saying they haven't passed. You kind of have to put like your blockers on and your blinders when it comes to a lot of that stuff. I had to be really, really strict with myself. Like, I cannot go on social media until I pass this test. Because if I go on social media, I'm going to scroll through all the social work groups, I'm going to read everybody's test story, and I'm going to freak out. So all I did was I copied the links that I needed, I printed the materials that I needed from those groups, and I left them alone because that was deterring my process extremely so in the beginning. I was approved to take my test in October. I remember I told y'all that. I had scheduled it for February and got super freaked out and scared and canceled it. Because of all of the things that I was taking on internally, and it was my own thoughts. So when I read negative things, all it did was feed those thoughts. And I was like, this is even more reason for me not to take this test. And I remember talking to Renita, and I'm like, Renita, I don't know if I need to take this test right now. And she was just like, if you don't know, then you shouldn't take the test. And I was like, okay. So I listened to her advice, I canceled it, and I kind of hit a reset because I felt like if I wasn't sure, then it was going to show up in how I performed on that test. Um, and it started to kind of be consuming, and I didn't want it to be something that I dreaded doing. I wanted it to be something that I look forward to doing. So I reset and I decided that I was going to take it later. And so I rescheduled it for May, and I had to really figure out between February in May how I wanted to handle it. Like I said, I had to come up with um a whole new skill set for myself. So, a lot of the times I would kind of incorporate it with things I was already doing for myself. So if I was at the gym, I'm listening to videos while I'm on the treadmill or I'm lifting weights. Like, I mean, no one wants to hear about, that stuff in the gym, but it worked because I was like really taking it in. And so I would do that a lot. Like I would be listening at work when I had downtime, when I'm in my car, because I travel to go to schools and see kids at school. And so I would listen to it in my car when I'm going from place to place. Um, and when I did have downtime with myself, I would close that book and I would put that book off to the side and I would go live life. Because in the beginning, I was like, well, Renee, you can't go on a trip and you got to study for this test. You can't do this because you have to study for your test. You can't, and you start going down this list, like cutting yourself off from life because of this test. And that's not going to work either. So I had to figure out a good balance. So when I did cancel my test, in February, I felt awful, and then I went on a trip in March because I was like, "We're gonna wanna go on a trip anyway." So, I went to Houston, and I just kinda reset. I was like, "I'm still gonna go have a good time with my friends. I'm not gonna shut myself off from the world because I need to study." So, I came back from my trip, started back studying again. Um and so I would say that's the biggest thing is just finding your rhythm. And a lot of times too, when I sat down in my room and I opened that study book and I had anxiety, I would pray over that book in this exam. Like I probably wrote like LICSW on everything. Like I had it on sticky notes, I had it in my purse, I had it like in my notebooks when I was studying. Like it was everywhere. Cause I was like, we're gonna get this. And I remember something too that Renita told me is like, you need to figure out why you're taking this test. Because when she asked me, I could not tell her why. Like, I was like, I mean, I want to make more money. Like, I want to, the obvious things, right? So, um, what I did with that, like, I went in my phone but right, like, maybe, like, 2 weeks before the test, 2 or 3 weeks before the test when I was really freaking out, and I wrote it out. Like, instead of studying in that moment, I was like, "Why do you want this test? Why do you wanna pass it?" And I wrote down every single reason that I felt like was important, and the biggest reason being is that I want to be able to be in spaces that really help other people. Like, I don't it's not even about, you know, the money, which would be better, but I think the biggest thing is like I want to be able to reach more people with this license than I can reach here. I don't want to limit myself to where I'm living now or even the agency where I'm at now because I know there's more people that I could reach with this license. And so that is the most important thing for me. And I have to kind of sit with that and be like, okay, this is your why. Like, I don't know why it took you so long to figure that out. And your why is helping the babies. Like, so if there's more babies to be helped, I'm gonna go help them. But I think, like I said, this test is very mentally exhausting and it will try to make you forget those things because everybody talks about all of the good perks that come with it. And so you kind of look forward to those things more so than the whole reason you started the profession in the first place. So I think that's so important to remember when you're going through this is why am I here and why am I doing this work? That got a little preachy, but but like that is so important for me is recentering my brain on what is important to me about the profession. I finally got my PowerPoint back, y'all. I've been wrestling on the sidelines. 'Cause it doesn't want me to be great, and I'm so determined to show it to y'all. I'm not gonna let it win. Um, hold on. So we were talking about test anxiety. So I'm gonna see if we can start it from this slide. Okay. So these are the do's and don'ts about test anxiety. So we already talked about this part. Using your coping skills is up to you when you use them. You can use them before, during, and after, or you can use them before and after. It's totally up to you. I was definitely doing them throughout because I was losing my mind. Schedule time to relax. You do not have to study every day for this test, believe it or not. I took days off where I went out with friends, like, I went and had drinks, I went for a walk, like, I did so many other things besides that being my entire focus. Make sure that you're spending quality time with yourself and others, so making sure that you're having different ways that you can pour into yourself. And I know that's really hard, especially like, when you have, like, family and other priorities, but just how we talk about incorporating self-care for work, you can definitely do that with this test. So all of your spare time does not have to be this test. Give yourself grace because you may not know everything. I'm gonna tell y'all 1,000%, I did not know everything on that test. There are some questions I was like, "I've never heard of this before in my life." Or it was one question that I read and I was like, "I don't even know what this word means." But I had to just try to figure out based off on the context what it was even asking. Don't know if I got it, but we're here, so it's gonna be okay. Um, but don't ignore your anxiety. I think that was my biggest thing in the beginning was that I was trying to force myself through anxiety and just be like, I have to get this done. I have to do this right now. It doesn't matter if I'm nervous, I'm just going to do it. And that is operating off of really manic energy. Like, that's not good for you going into a test kind of frenzied like that, feeling like this is more important than your mental health because it's not. Um, don't overextend yourself or use too many tools to study. I know I had a long list of tools, y'all, but honestly, I was not using all of them at one time. Like, it just, it depended on what I was doing. So if I needed to do a study session, I would do a study session where I could sit down in my room and really take everything in. If I needed to listen to videos, I would listen to videos while I'm doing something active. I would not recommend pouring yourself into that study book, reading it from back to front if you don't feel like you need to. This is stuff y'all know, y'all. So you don't have to do that. But those areas that I felt the weakest in, I spent more time on those. Um, don't cram the night before. You don't need to study the night before. There's nothing that you're gonna know the night before that you don't know already. So let it go. And don't overthink the process. Like I said, it looks scarier because it's like this huge test, but I think we give it too much. So, okay. So this is how I prepared for my test day. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I told y'all I prayed over this test so much, and I also cried a whole lot. Like, I was definitely crashing out a lot because I was like really panicking because I was just like, this has to work out. Of course, I told y'all I wrote my credentials everywhere. Um, and I took breaks and let myself really enjoy life without feeling guilty about it. And I wrote down my why. I did not study the night before. I did study the day before, but I didn't study that night. I had to like force myself, like, you know what? Nope. Tonight we're gonna relax. And I think that night I just like poured myself a glass of wine. I went to bed early. Like, I just had to chill out for a second and not even think about that. I would turn on a show that I can like deep dive into and I let it be that. Um, and I didn't tell anyone that I was taking the test. I just took it because I feel like that also helps your anxiety. Because I think when you start telling people, like, oh, I'm going to take my test next week, they start asking you a lot of things or putting a lot of weight on it that you don't necessarily need, even though sometimes it's good intentions. So I think walking into it, I didn't tell anyone that I had it scheduled. I don't even think I told everyone right away when I passed it. I think I was kind of like, I need a minute to kind of process that I even passed it. Um, but it's up to you, like whatever y'all feel comfortable doing. But this is what I did for me. Um, so I will say, just going through this whole experience, like I feel like it's really changed me a whole lot. Because I've always been an overthinker and an over planner, and I need to know the who's and the whys and all the things all the time. And that is already anxiety producing on a regular basis. So when it comes to something like this, it just kind of um became really bigger than me. So it really did teach me a lot about how to manage my anxiety in a better way and really take control over it and not let it control me when it comes to things that I know I want to do. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at with this presentation is that remember that this is something that you're wanting to do. So going into it with the worst possible outcome, it doesn't really make sense. Like think about it. Like when we go on vacation, we're like, oh, this is gonna be the worst vacation ever in my life. We don't think about things like that because we're excited to go. We're excited to go do it. So we can definitely reframe our thoughts when it comes to this test. This is something that we're wanting. So treat it like this is like the best thing ever that you get the opportunity to do. And that is going to change your whole internal dialogue. Like it's going to change like how your body responds to it. You're not going to feel all of this pressure and anxiety. You're going to feel excited about doing it. And this is coming from someone that took me months to get over it. Um, and I don't regret taking the time, but now that I've taken the time, I don't want y'all to spend all that time. um, so this is kind of like my aftermath of everything. So right now, I'm still at my same job, but I am looking at new opportunities, and I'm actually like excited about it for the first time. I've been down this road before, y'all, and I've like chickened out every time. And like Renita knows, because she's been trying to get me out of here for a long time. Um, but now I feel more confident about stepping into those roles like than I did before. I think I had to overcome that anxiety piece to get to that point to be like, you know what? This is something that I really want to do that I've never done. So I'm just going to put myself out there. So I'm looking at other positions and we're going to see how those pan out. And I've learned a lot about how much I can overcome when I surrender things. Like I said, I'm working on that control piece of it and knowing all of the layers to it. This is a journey, I will say, and I'm speaking about social work in general. We don't always know what's going to be the outcome of what we're doing. We just put our best foot forward every time we walk in those spaces. And sometimes we have to surrender to the systems, we have to surrender to the circumstances. We don't have control over the whole picture, even though we would love to. So I think that kind of goes hand in hand with this test. Like you kind of have to let things be what they are and surrender some of that control. Um, and now I pray every day about everything. Like I literally sit in my car sometimes and I just start talking to God about all the random things that pop into my mind, and that has eased a lot of my worries and a lot of how I perceive outcomes of things, because I kind of have learned to speak about things like they're already happening or they're already kind of in that transition that I mentioned earlier. That's why I kind of use that word. Like that I'm in a transition phase right now. Like I'm not failing, I'm not missing anything. It's just kind of shifting. It's just transitioning, like, you know? So, um, and I will lastly say, y'all, I feel like I really know my worth now in the social work world. And I know that I'm going to have a job that pays well, that I'm really passionate about. And those two things are not mutually exclusive. They have to be together. And I don't want to settle for something that I'm not passionate about because it's not going to be worth it to me. So that is my biggest thing, y'all. And I'll leave y'all with that because I wanted to leave time for questions. So that's all I have. Oh, Tanessa, you're the GOAT. You're so quick. Let me see. And I might do y'all a better one. I might put the link in the chat to the video I showed y'all. Mm-mm-mm. But do y'all have any questions about any of that stuff? I don't see anything.
How far was the testing center from where you are?
It actually really wasn't far. We only have one, and it's I think it's like maybe like 10 minutes from my house.
Okay. What part of Alabama are you in?
Montgomery.
Okay, that's what I was wondering because I know before there was one in Hoover, but I don't know if that's going to be the same now that they've switched. So,
I don't know. And see, it also depends on availability too. So I would just put in whatever, like range you're looking at. Like if you're thinking about a certain range and just look at those dates for what's closer to you. I just put in my zip code to see what aligned better with location and timing because that's what's going to make a difference. I don't know why, but when they switched to Pearson, they didn't have as much available dates open. Like it was kind of like spread out. It was kind of weird. It was like they would have maybe like 4 or 5 days of like booking and then it would be empty. So it was kind of I've never seen it like that. Normally the calendar is kind of open, but those dates were filling up super fast. I don't know if it was because they shut down for those few weeks, but that's why I say kind of look at the whole calendar and just kind of gauge it.
Okay. Yeah, I took my LMSW down in Montgomery and it was so stressful the whole drive. So if I do it in Montgomery again, I think I'm just gonna stay the night down there the night before.
Absolutely. I would not recommend getting on the road for this test. Absolutely not.
I did have a question on like so when I took the LMSW, we could do all of the questions at once. I was one of those people who I didn't take a break. I just submitted all of the questions. But you said that you had to do the 85 and now you can't go back
Mm-hmm.
at all. So what did that process look like? After you did the 85 questions, it just wouldn't let you go
You
back
can't
to
you
anything?
what so it's kind of similar to how it would be when you submit the whole test. So when you submit the first 85, it'll ask you like, are you sure? And it'll ask you if you want to review them. It'll show you all of your flagged ones in that 85. But once you hit submit and that you don't want to go back and review, they go away. Yeah.
Okay.
It's honestly, I will say it's kind of how do I describe it? It's good and bad parts to it. I feel like it's bad because you can't go back and look at those questions and they're just immediately gone. Versus when you had the full time, you could go back and look at all of it at your own pace. Because for me, I like to go through a test and I'm like, I'm gonna do all the ones I know, and then I'm gonna go back to all the ones I didn't know. But with
Yeah.
this, you kind of can't. So that's a downside. The good side is that you take a break that doesn't count against you. So it's already implemented into your time. You have those 2 hours and then you have a 10-minute break that's already mapped out for you that doesn't cut into your time versus before when you took a break, your time was still going. So it's pros and cons.
Okay. Yeah. When you said that, it just made me think I'm gonna have to rethink how I do tests because that's usually how I do it. I go through everything first, and then the stuff I don't know, I go back to it. So that's okay. I have time to figure that out.
Absolutely have time to figure it out. And then too, I will say, that's why I was so adamant about taking the break because they've already like put it in your time anyway. So use your break time. But I will say, the biggest thing when it comes to them breaking it up, um, I think the part that I didn't like too, I'll add this part, is that when they switched it, the ASWB practice exam was not made like that. So that's what psyched me out because I'm like, if y'all gonna change something, change the practice test too so we could practice how to do it. Because I'm taking the practice exam like the old format, all the way through, checking my questions. So then when I went in, I wasn't really prepared for that switch. So, and I think that's what tripped people up because they're trying to figure out their timing with those 85 questions. They're like, if there's a lot of them that you flagged, that's going to eat your time up. So I think that they need to definitely get on that is changing that practice exam so it can accommodate people.
Can you speak to what you decided to do as relates to flagging your answers and going back to them again?
Um, so I usually when I'm going through the test, I will flag the ones that either I'm not
I was hoping she would come back. It's not just us, right? Is it not just me? Or is she frozen? Okay.
She's frozen. I thought it was me
Oh,
too.
here she comes. She's back. She had to re-enter.
Oh my gosh, y'all. So my technology in my office is definitely against me tonight. Like for whatever reason, we have really bad network issues at this office. I'm not gonna say anything else, but but to your question about flagging, when you're using their system, they do have an option to where you can flag your questions. So when you're flagging your questions, it's like kind of banking them for later. So you can kind of just go back and see all of your flagged questions. And I think it lets you sort it. Like you can sort it based on your unanswered and your flagged questions. And I think you can see all of them at one time. I think I just sorted mine by the ones I flagged. So I could go back and look at the ones that I wasn't super sure about. I will say, people always say this, like, don't, change your answers. I will say do not change your answers unless you're for sure that you figured out that that was not the right answer. Because sometimes you will look at something again and reread it, and then you're like, that didn't make any sense. Why did I pick that? Versus you're like, well, it could be this and it could be that. If you're kind of teetering like that, just go at what you picked. But if you're for sure, change it. It's okay. That's why you have that ability to go back to those questions. And I try to really pace myself, um, which is hard, but I really tried to pace myself on this test. Um, that's why I suggested to highlight the key points of the question. So making sure that you're highlighting what it's asking, one. So that main question one at the bottom, make sure you're highlighting that so you know what they're asking. And then also who it involves, because sometimes, like I said, that'll change up how you answer too. And that kind of sped up the process for me, actually. Like, I didn't have to spend too much time reading all the fluff. I could just look at who I'm serving and what the question's asking and the presenting issues. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's this. But then there's some questions, y'all, they will ask you one line. And you're like, okay, based off of this one line of information, what am I going to do with this? So, um, pacing yourself is going to be good. A lot of those ones that were really straightforward like that, I just flagged anyway. Like even if I was like, I feel like I know it, I'm just going to flag it because I want to be able to spend more time on it. Um, so that's okay. If you're just going through the first set of questions, flagging everything, that's cool. But save yourself at least a good 10 minutes or so to look back over your first 85.
What would you say the differences between Pearson and PSI?
Two. See, that I really can't speak to because I've never tested with PSI. Both times I tested with Pearson. So the switch wasn't super different for me, but I don't know. There might be somebody in this group that could speak to that a little bit more. Has anybody ever tested with PSI? Yeah, I don't see anybody. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the differences are. One thing I did hear from people about the switch was that they feel like Pearson was a lot more strict as far as how you came in the testing area, which I can agree. They check you all the way down. You got to pat yourself down. You got to open all your pockets up. Like if you have a hat on, you have to lift it. Like they might have you take off certain bulky things that you have on. Like it's almost like a lockdown. Like you don't know what you're walking into. I'm gonna be honest. So that's why I say like, dress comfortably so you're not having to do all of that. I think they even have some people places I think check your shoes too. Have y'all had people do that? But they check everything. Like I do remember that. What are they saying? That was signing myself into prison. It is like that, y'all. I swear. It's literally like there's like sweet older ladies at the Montgomery site. They're so precious, but they're like, okay, I need you to pat yourself down from like all the way up to the top of your leg, all the way down. And it's like, oh my gosh, what do you feel like I'm carrying? So I will say that is a huge thing with Pearson. Like they do not play about anything that you bring into the testing site. And then also too, making sure that those things are in your locker that are required to be. They don't really play around with that. So you can't, of course, you can't be on your phone. You can't go in any bags that you have. So what I did was I just sat my snacks like in front of my purse. So I'm just grabbing my snacks and closing it back up.
Renee, there was a question earlier. Shandrika said, this might sound crazy. Do you know why you can't write anything down before the test? And I thought you could write down your acronyms right as soon as you sat down.
Well, so from my understanding, you can write on the notepad when your test starts. So they say that you can't write anything down until your test starts. So um, I don't know if that's like a new adjustment. They don't want people like writing things down before, they see it. I'm not sure, but I just remember them saying, don't write anything until your test starts. I'm not sure the reasoning for that. Because for me, I'm like, I'm gonna forget everything if I don't write everything down right now. Um, but like I said, they came in there like a drill sergeant. I treated myself like that. I was like, I don't want no smoke with y'all, so I'm not gonna write nothing down. And I'm not gonna stand up unless y'all tell me I can.
Renee, I wanted to tell you how much I appreciated you taking this pivot with goddesses. We have had Renee, she passed in May, but from May to July, we're not even done with July, we've had 6 goddesses pass their exam. I mean,
Awesome.
if we ain't doing something up in here, I don't know. We've had 6 goddesses just from May to July, and so we have 3 more people come and speak. And so, Renee, for you to take have the transparency to say I have test anxiety, and this is no one's talking about that part, and we're forgetting why we're doing this because we're so like, okay, I gotta do this, I gotta pass it, and you don't. Renee's still working at her job, and but she's but she took time to make sure she was okay. And I think that's the soul lesson we're trying to get through with the guys as a social work. Like the work that we do is important, and so you got to be the first person you take care of, and that includes taking the test on your timeline. Tinessa is going to be coming and talking to us in August. She just passed, and I can't wait to hear her story. She's took it in her timeline. So releasing this, I have to get it done at a certain um, time period. Y'all are the only ones who are putting that time period on yourselves. Ain't nobody else putting that on you at all. The way social work is set up now, I remember a time where you had to be licensed in order to keep employment, but y'all are already LMSWs doing really well in the profession. The LC is something because you want to do it. And so for Renee to come back and remind us, remember why you wanted to do this, because you actually can thrive exactly where you are right now. And so pushing yourselves to do something and scaring yourself, it's really what you do. You're scaring yourself when you're actually perfectly fine where you are. Remember why you're doing it. And so, Renee, I appreciate you coming and talking to us about the anxiety portion of it and also to the remembering the why. And then the, okay, I got it. I was one of the people because people usually text me. It's like Tanessa passed yesterday. I was one of the first people she missed, like people usually, I'm like the first person. I love that kind of energy that people message besides, their family folk or whatever. Sometimes I'm the first. But Renee was a month or two, and she was like, "Oh, Renee, I just been meaning to tell you." And I'm like, Sam, I loved that energy so much because she took the power out of the clinical exam. That's what she's talking to us about. She removed its power over her so that there was not even this urgency to let any of us know that she had. That's how much she took the power out of that exam. And so, Renee, the last 2 minutes, do you want to speak to any of that, to reiterate it? But I want to just tell you, this was a new approach to coming back and telling us about and I really appreciate this approach.
Thank you. I don't have much to say. I just want y'all to know that y'all are awesome and that this is a crazy process, but y'all are so capable of doing all the hard things. And I think sometimes when we reach new levels, we kind of talk ourselves out of it, that we can't do it. But look at all the other things that y'all have been able to do with this career that have been hard. None of this has been easy. So this test is not going to be the first hard thing, and it's not going to be the last hard thing you do. So I will say that y'all can conquer it and conquer it on your own time. Like Miss Renita said, if you don't have a job pressing you about it, don't stress about it. Don't try to rush into the next thing. It's already going to be yours anyway. Like, you don't have to rush into it. So it doesn't make sense for you to be like, I have to get it done because I have to do this. You don't have to. It's going to come to you naturally and it's going to be in your own timing. So I had to keep reminding myself of that, is that God's timing is never off. We're just trying to rush the timeline because that's what we want. So just take yourself out of it a little bit and process it. Like, I think I wish I would have processed my why months prior to me taking it. That might have changed how long it took me to overcome my anxiety. But I am grateful that it took me a little bit longer so I could tell y'all my experience with it. But y'all absolutely got this. Y'all have a great group. And take advantage of Miss Renita, because I've been seeing her send out those study groups. Y'all take advantage of that, because that's helpful. And then that's also another place where you can be like, y'all, I'm scared. Like, it's all a safe space. So use this group to your advantage.
Well, thanks, Renee, for coming. Wasn't this awesome?
You're so sweet.
Renee, you are Renee Ingram, LICSW. Come on through, girl. Renee Ingram, LICSW. Ooh, under 30, by the way.
I am under 30, y'all.
I love that. I love that energy. Under 30, by the way. Who out here doing that? Come on through.
You are so
Come on through. Renee, I want you to join Circle too, because it's for everybody. It's for the alumni as well. So I'll send you the link via
yeah.
text if you don't have it, but please join it, because I love
Okay.
what you said. Y'all take advantage of what we're doing here. Take advantage of what we're doing here, seriously, because you're going to get out there and you're going to be like, and a lot of social workers don't have what we have here. So make sure you're taking advantage of it, because it will make your career so much easier. Renee Ingram, LICSW, thank you for coming back. And I got something else planned for us coming up. So you'll be coming back again, okay?
Oh, okay. Well,
All
I'd
right,
love
you